Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to address you today on how I see the situation with low prices of textile goods in general. I believe there are a few trends that got us to where we are today, and that they can help us see our way out. I wanted to share with you today how I see the situation that we're in now, where many of our textile goods are very low priced, and we've treated people to expect that. I have a few insights that I believe got us here and can help us see our way out. The situation, of course, is compelling. We have global warming every day in the news. We don't really need to talk too much about it, except to do something. Here's the first thought. Classical economics taught us that classical economics taught us that value-added pricing was the way that we were to price goods. We took labor, we took land, and the capital goods, we took the value of them, put a little markup in it, and sold it. However, by the 1980s, monetarist economics were really causing us to think differently. Demand pricing moved in, we moved to the developing world, traders thrived, and the world began to be addicted to low prices. The second way is the internet. We're here addressing each other today by the miracle of the internet, and it's made another miracle in shopping. In the 1980s and 90s, department stores were ruling the roost in the US and Europe. Central marketing was telling us what to buy. Consumers were following the masses. We were opening new department stores and many department stores in each city so that marketing buys were able to produce more sales. But every store had to have a safety stock of goods. We ended up with vast amounts of unused product. Now in 2020, courtesy of the internet, everything has changed. The department stores are failing. Why? Because we don't need department store buyers. The consumer is the buyer. The consumer selects the items for themselves, and we're completely rejecting central marketing, preferring individuality. Look at these photos from the 90s, where the marketing people were training us to run to the mall, to treat the mall as entertainment, and along the way, buy some clothing so we looked like these beach bodies. Today, it's a completely different story. You know, here we are, individuals thinking about ourselves, doing what we can do for ourselves, and pretty much rejecting the traditional marketing. However, another type of marketing has come over, and look at how amazingly real it is. Here's an Instagram marketer who's been tremendously successful, a very real person, selling to real people and doing a fabulous job. The third wave comes in really to our industry. It's the wave of how we've been in and out of performance synthetics. Forgive me for focusing on nylon and polyester, and that's most of what I'm involved with, but I'll talk a little bit about cellulosics later. I see three themes really going on here. We started with engineering, and I believe we're coming back to it. Engineering costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time. The refinements were easier, they were incremental. And we can say that also the department stores and the polymer work was relatively local. And to some degree, we may be coming back to local with circularity. You know, in the 50s, it was all about nylon 6/6. It was fabulously durable. The military surplus was durable. Nylon stockings were ubiquitous and more durable than silk stockings anyway. By the 60s, all the housewives in America were wearing beautiful nylon jersey dresses with bright acid dye colors and 70 denier. The next era after that, in the 70s, We figured out how to make polyester nice by siliconizing it. We invented the the polyester pantsuits in the ABBA era. It wasn't very comfortable, so it didn't last very long. We headed off to Asia to get cheaper prices, and along the way, with cheaper labor, we were also able to move to less expensive synthetic. We had nylon 6 instead of double 6. We took that 70 denier and made 50 denier out of it, and got more yards of fabric out of every kilogram of polymer. Microfibers were invented. In the 90s, we went down to 30 denier. We invented wicking, which made polyester actually comfortable, which it wasn't back in the 70s. And we figured out how to laminate the synthetics with Gore and Sympatex to be able to produce nice rainwear as well. In the 2000s, we actually got down to 20 denier and stretched every kilogram of polymer even further. But something was happening in the finishes by then. Scotchgard actually ended their production of their stain repellent chemical in fear of lawsuits. By the 2010s, we found those PFASs everywhere in the world, even in the milk of penguins in Antarctica. By 2020, we knew that what Rachel Carson talked to us about in the 1960s, that ecology was important, was absolutely true. And not only that, we needed to take it further into sustainability and even circularity. With that knowledge, of course, came complexity, and I really believe is bringing us back to polymer science again. The advantage we have is that in our industry, we already have 4 of the 5 elements of circularity that we're heavily involved in. It's really only that reuse, repair, recycling that remains for us to engage in. This circularity diagram is well known. Let's dive in and look at each one of the elements of it. Right now, we can amplify the current best practices of using mechanically recycled polyester and the long chain nylons, and even we're making some of those bio-based now. Lensing has created the wonderful cellulosic process that is getting more and more credence all along. We've learned how to use really low liquor ratios. We're getting better at dope dyeing. CO2 dyeing is with us now out of the universities. Digital printing is taking a bigger piece of the printing market all the time. And sublimation printing has a new life because we can digitally print the paper. But phase 2 is coming. We have the monomer level recycling and molecular level recycling coming very quickly. Not quite with us yet, but getting here very quickly. And we have even more novel polymers coming, brewed with bugs that make the polymers directly. This is not short. It took 25 years to get PLA to the place that it is. The PHAs have been going for 15 and they're just getting a toehold. It's very complicated. We can make the polymer, but then we have to figure out if it's efficacious for all of the things we like to do in different kinds of fabrics, wovens and non-wovens, and if it's safe for us as people, safe for the environment. So that's not a short road, but when the things come along, we certainly need to be using them aggressively. We also, now in the increased clothing utilization, have a recognition that longevity is actually one way for us to reduce the amount of clothing that we waste and that we have to produce and use. Workwear brands have understood it for a while. The rental uniform people probably understand it the best, in that they only care how many times they can wash product and put it back out again. So those things that we can do in real longevity are of huge value there. The hard use outdoor community is just really beginning to review this again, but it can be a game changer, and I believe it will be. Another aspect of increasing the utilization of clothing is getting them into the recycling streams. That's best done, or easiest done today, with single materials, as in flat knits and seamless knits that we're embracing more and more along the way. Conscious made single materials from pieced items is more difficult. You know, a performance raincoat of laminated products and polyester linings and various things is very tough. Patagonia has managed to make an all polyester garment. It can be done, and we'll see more of that. And I believe it's an important thing for us to be working on. However, in all of these cases, getting the product back into the waste stream is only as good as our labeling. Even for people to recognize that something has high value reuse and get it into a resale stream and is important, and we need to be marketing that. Our friends at Patagonia market their worn wear product very well and help manage the reuse of it. I believe that more of that will come. Certainly in Europe, we're seeing it with the extended producer responsibility legislation. I want to focus on the things that are here in bold: manufacturing for easy repair and dismantling into easily recyclable units. That's much like the car industry is already doing. I absolutely believe that we can do that. It's certainly a departure from where we're at today, but I believe that it's important for us to not only do, but to market. An interesting group, the reuse group, people in Austria, I believe also in the Netherlands, has a nice broadening of the EPR initiative by bringing in the producers. And yeah, they're going to look for some money, I think, from us for that, but we may have clever ways of dealing with that. And then a public and social partnership where marginally employable people are often used in shops that are bringing in the recycled goods, are doing repairs, are getting them into the highest value streams, and really becoming specialists in that. It's a nice approach, and I believe will work well. We have a similar approach, you know, from Adidas and on with shoes for single polymer by subscription, where the companies will take them back and get them into high value recycling. Fabulous. We see trash bag people providing trash bags where you can put all of the things that are normally difficult to recycle, and they'll bring them back and through pyrolysis make them back into oil. A nice approach. In Seattle, we had a 10-year-old start collecting light bulbs and batteries around his neighborhood, enlisting his father and uncles as well. And that's now turned into an entire business around the city, now extended into clothing. You buy a box for $10 a month and then solicit your neighbors on the block to pass their difficult to recycle things in to ensure they get into the best recycling possible. Of course, then there's the final element here of better recycling. I think the most remarkable example here, or one of them, is certainly IKEA. They've committed by 2030 that everything that they sell will be sustainable. They've contributed $3.9 billion to the initiative already. A wonderful, wonderful thing. At the same time, they've spurred the development of this NGR company that's actually making the machinery and selling it in. A huge commitment. In the US, the Eastman, from the former Eastman Kodak, took their old cellulose acetate film producing facilities and have now made two different recycling streams, one molecular recycling, one monomer recycling. These are due to come online relatively soon. Many other companies are involving in this, many names that we all know very well. Some maybe that are new to some of us here. People like Bluecon, recycling polypropylene from hospitals, for instance. All nice initiatives that I believe are very important for us. To summarize quickly, yes, the first two, we can contribute in every one. Further amplifying the first phase, designing for longevity and reuse, promoting utility and cost per use as value, but then critically at recognizing the supply-demand balance that exists between number 3 and 4, where by making it easier to repair and recycle and separate, we can help support the supply, and creating value from waste by really aggressively using these new recycling technologies. We can do a nice job there. And I believe it's incumbent on us. So my feeling of our agenda is to support this supply-demand balance, recognize that we have taught people to pay less. It's not going to be easy to drag them back. And I believe it's a time for us to revisit value-added pricing and give the windfall to Mother Earth. I believe it's a good time to do it. Let's also remember that short roads save CO2. It may be a time for a little more local for local production. We certainly have supply chains in many areas, and as we're picking up the products, bringing them back in the same areas will be a good solution. Finally, using forums like ourselves here at the ITMF to create simple circular solutions and reduce this big arrow that goes through the middle to reduce waste. Now we have some time. I'm very happy to take questions as you may have. Thanks so much for your attention.